So while most high-end flagship EMs cost over $2,000, a company from Europe decided to make one at exactly $1,000 or 1,000 euros. This is the Spirit Torino Twin Pulse EMs, or Twin Pulse Beryllium. So those are in-ear monitors with drivers coated in beryllium, 2 dynamic drivers per each EM, or at least 2 motors, a single dynamic driver. So the tech inside is more complex than with most EMs. They have a complex ventilation passage going through the EM, which allows you to get the sound which the Spirit Torino Twin Pulse Beryllium is able to create. To get the sound that they have, Spirit Torino insisted on creating a unique driver technology. So first off, they decided to use a single dynamic driver. Second, they decided to not use any kind of crossovers. This is because in speakers you have enough place to install a complex high-end crossover, but in EMs there is no such space. Look at this. It would make them heavy, it would make them uncomfortable. So instead of using a complex crossovers and multiple drivers, they use just one driver with 2 motors, and they have a complex airway passage through the EM to create the pressure and to equalize it so that you get the sound which is the Spirit Torino Twin Pulse Beryllium. They have aluminum shells and you can actually remove the tips. This is the first EM on which I have installed the foam tips. This is because the foam tip offered the best overall sonic reproduction along with the best comfort. We have detachable cables, but instead of the standard 2-pin connectors, we have the 2-pin recessed connector, which is the connector where the 2-pin has a jacket around it. This is useful so that you don't break the 2-pin connector. I mean, this one is more reliable than the standard 2-pin connector, but fewer EMs use it. So this means that you will have a hard time finding aftermarket cables, or if you have a large collection of EMs, the cables for others won't fit the Twin Pulse Beryllium. This is the first EM that I feel looks a bit funny when installed, so this is how it looks like. It is very different from all of the EMs that I've reviewed. Very different design. They are circular, so in theory you could wear them straight down, but they protrude quite a bit far from your ear. So as you can see, it is quite long, the EM. So if you were using straight down cables, they will pull on them and they would be pulled out of your ears. Since this is an open back EM, it has 2 ventilation ports on the EM body and the back is almost fully open. First off, this means that they don't isolate that much from the outside noise, so you'll hear quite a bit of noise coming from the outside. And second, they actually leak quite a bit. For an EM, this is quite rare, but they have quite a bit of sonic leakage. The cable has solid ear guides, which I don't really like. I'm not a fan of them. They don't offer me the best comfort, so I have replaced the cables for most of my testing with aftermarket cables. The solid ear guides can offer some kind of more secure fitting, but at the same time you are sacrificing comfort because the ear guide has a metallic wire on the inside and that can push into the back of your ear. That creates a bit of discomfort. On the other hand, the rest of the cable is quite comfortable. They even include multiple cables and they are all high-end cables. It's just the solid ear guide that I can't work with. The EMs have this star-like shape at the back, which can be uncomfortable if it touches your ear because it is quite sharp, but at the same time it doesn't really touch my ears during usage. This is just something I should mention because for some people, especially the first time installing them, you might feel the star shape touching your ear and that can be a bit uncomfortable. The Twin Pulse Beryllium is quite hard to drive. You need a high-end source, you need a strong source, you need something with a lot of power, and you need something which sounds very detailed and clean to get the best sound out of them. They're also a bit sensitive to noise, so you'll have to use a source which doesn't have background hissing, which doesn't have a high output impedance, and which is designed for high-end EMs. You have left and right markings on both the EM shells and the cable. And they come with filters so that you can get more bass or less bass. The filters just basically affect the bass. You get a bassier sound or a leaner sound. The overall sound of the Twin Pulse Beryllium is the most natural sound that I've heard in my entire life. It's not the most detailed. This doesn't mean that it is the cleanest sound necessarily, it's just the most natural, most transparent sound that I've had in a really long while. They produce such a natural mid-range. Most of the magic is in the mids, where you get such a beautiful, wide, and such an airy sound, but at the same time the timbre and the overall tonal balance is absolutely spot on. You don't get this kind of spot on tonality with anything, even pricier EMs. Usually pricier EMs can extract details a bit better, so they have a faster transient response, faster impulse response. The driver moves quicker and it comes back to its spot quicker when impulse is applied to it. While with the Spirit Torino Beryllium, the entire acoustic chamber that sound passes through, the entire system of ventilation that they have on the inside creates this type of sound which is absolutely perfect. It's like the singer is staying in the same room as you. This means that they create some intimacy in the soundstage, so the voices are always projected forward. You always get the voicing really close to you. You hear like they're whispering, they're singing in your ears, they are right there with you. The singer is right there. It's always right there. But at the same time, when you have instruments, they are pushed and projected in the background. They have a lot of space to play. And with the Twin Pulse Beryllium, music just always happens right where you are. They just create this kind of sound where they put you right in the middle of the action, but they don't create a fatiguing sound. Somehow they create a really transparent, really realistic sound. You hear the texture in the singer's voice. This is something that I have come to appreciate after hearing a lot of EMs, especially high-end setups, where you don't get this natural texture. You see, my voice has a bit of a texture, you know, it sounds almost like I'm coming out of a cold, you know, you see, there's this little texture to my voice. Well, the Spirit Torino Twin Pulse can create that texture perfectly, even in voices which are complicated to render. For example, Adam Levine, he just gets this feeling where he sounds alive. No singer sounds recorded when played by these Twin Pulse Beryllium. They all sound so much like they are happening in front of you. And the company does say that they use jazz music to tune them, and of course with jazz music they sound the best. It is like an EM made for jazz. You get a good amount of bass but not too much. It is just the perfect amount for it to sound natural. You get a very natural mid-range where the singer is very intimate with you, so again perfect for jazz. And you get an 80 treble but not a harsh or fatiguing one. You get a really natural treble that just happens naturally. That is how I would describe it. It's just perfect. I would say that this is the perfect EM for jazz, for classical, for acoustic music, anything that you want to sound natural. This is how the Twin Pulse Beryllium is designed to sound as natural, as clean, and as detailed as possible. The competition is harsh, I will be honest with you. There are so many EMs that can be compared to them because the price point is full. At least not the $1,000 price point, but the flagship range, you can grab anything from the flagship range. And I've done a good number of comparisons in the full written review, but in the video review I wanted to attack this one. This is the Sennheiser EA900. It is an EM that was requested for me to review against the Spirit Torino Twin Pulse Beryllium. So both cables are a bit tangle prone. As you can see, I keep playing with the cables. This is because they take a while to untangle, but the EA900 has a less tangle prone cable. The one on the Twin Pulse Beryllium is more tangle prone. The comfort is about equal, and although Twin Pulse Beryllium needs an aftermarket cable, EA900 needs aftermarket tips because the default tips don't offer a good contact with my ears. So I have to use aftermarket tips. The ones that I like the best are DD Hi-Fi ST35. They just work really well with my ears. The silicone is of a stickier type, which just makes good contact with my ears, and the ear guides on the A900 are also solid. So, you know, it's crazy. Two flagship EMs, and they both come with solid ear guides. And I don't like either of those cables because of that. The solid ear guides don't offer good comfort with EA900, and they don't offer good comfort with the Twin Pulse Beryllium. But there is one trick. With the Twin Pulse Beryllium you can use any aftermarket cable, while with the EA900 you can't. The EM has a tiny black lip here that doesn't allow you to use most aftermarket MMCX cables. The cables can be used on other MMCX based EMs, but most cables will not be compatible with EA900, so you have to use the default cables, which have this really thin metallic wire inside of the cable that forces it to shape after your ear. But that doesn't work well for me because I move a bit. I listen, I bang my head, something, and then the shape doesn't really follow my ear anymore, and it actually pulls on the EM and it pulls it out of my ear. This is why I don't like metallic hard guides. I just made a mess with the wires. So sonically they are very different. Sonically, EA900 has a very full, very thick sub bass with a good amount of punch and substance, while Spirit Torino has a flatter, more natural, neutral bass. In the midrange, EA900 has some recession in the midrange, even though it is not quite as strong as EA800, it's still present, so you still have the voices pushed backwards. Music is projected laterally in depth and in height as well, so you get a much wider soundstage. You have about the same level of instrument separation, so both have good instrument separation, you hear them separated well, but with Spirit Torino you get a more natural mid-range texture and voicing, especially the voicing is insane on the Spirit Torino. It's like nothing has the same voicing, nothing. And I mean, no other EM. It's a really unique voicing. It's not just the best voicing. Like I'm not stating it is necessarily the best, but it is the most unique and it is the most direct, most intimate. And if you listen to jazz, it will be the best. I mean that I never heard an EM that makes jazz sound better than the Twin Pulse Beryllium. But at the same time, with other music styles, so with rock, with metal, EA900 has a much sharper, brighter and sparklier treble, which works well with this music. With Spirit Torino Twin Pulse Beryllium, the treble tends to be on the smoother, more refined side. And that works well with certain music, but not necessarily with rock and metal. Of course, you can spend quite a bit more on EMs, and I just published a video review on the Let's Shure Cadenza 12, and Cadenza 12 is more detailed. For sure, they can extract textures better, the transient response is quicker, but they don't create the same natural mid-range response like the Twin Pulse Beryllium. This is where those are beautiful. In the mids, where music happens, where voices happen, where you want them to be natural. Compared to that, Cadenza 12 is a really sharp, really bright sounding EM with a good resolution, a good bass, a good sub-bass extension, but in the mid-range they just sound a bit more sterile, neutral, and just flatter. Everything is just normal, acoustically more correct, but not having more character. Sometimes we want more character in music, and this is what the Twin Pulse Beryllium will provide you. They will give you the best character that you've heard ever. Now, character is something interesting because I was looking at upgrading my lenses for my videos, and I came across the fact that Canon makes the RF 50mm f1.2L, which aren't sharper than the ones I'm using. I'm using the Sigma 50mm f1.4, and theoretically the Sigma is sharper. But the Canon is said to have more character, like the flare they get from having light pointed at the lens will create a more beautiful image. I guess we'll see when I manage to do that. If you want to support my channel, you can, of course, subscribe to Audiophile Heaven, like the video. It really helps me out. More people can see the video, so if you had a good time, please do that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm really thankful to have you as my watcher, to have you here. I hope that if you decide to go for those, you'll have a good time. I really hope that. There are no affiliate links because they aren't available on Amazon, just from the Spirit Torino store or other resellers. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope we'll see each other really soon. Bye bye.